Elara pried the leather-bound book from the shelf. It crumbled at the touch, a relic from the 16th century. Tucked deep within the dry, brittle pages lay a single sheet of music. The notes were stained, bleeding into the parchment, yet the rhythm pulled at her. She took the sheet to the hospice wing. Arthur sat in the corner chair, his hands drumming a frantic, endless rhythm against his knees, a tremor he had not escaped for a decade. Elara stood behind him and began to hum. She matched the tempo of the notes on the page. Within 10 seconds, the movement stopped. Arthur's hands flattened against his thighs, anchoring him to the chair. His gaze sharpened. The haze that had clouded his eyes for years vanished. He turned, looked at Elara, and smiled. But then his eyes drifted to the mirror above his bed. He stared at the glass for a heartbeat, his smile turning to a jagged line of terror. Arthur opened his mouth and let out a raw, guttural scream. He lunged backward, fingers clawing at the air, refusing to look at the man staring back at him from the frame. Elara brushed off the incident as a neurological fluke, but the data demanded a second trial. She brought the melody to Mrs. Gable. As the final notes hummed through the ward, Gable stopped mid-sentence. She stared at her own hands, twisting them as if testing their weight, then pointed at the window. "Who is that woman?" she asked, gesturing toward her own reflection in the glass. She did not know herself. Elara left the wing and retreated to the sterile quiet of her lab. She hooked the recording to the spectrum analyzer, watching the waveforms bloom on the monitor. The melody was not a simple sequence of tones. When hummed, the frequency spiked, creating a violent, localized vacuum in the air. She adjusted the gain, isolating the sound. It was not a racing memory as she had feared. It was doing something far worse. It was unmooring the consciousness from its host. The air in the lab grew cold as the realization settled in. The song was not a lullaby. It was a catalyst. And the patients were merely being emptied out. Elara pulled up the security footage from Arthur's room. He sat motionless on his bed, the frame frozen in the blue light of the monitor. His eyes were vacant, the light behind them extinguished like a candle snuffed out by a sudden draft. Then, the footage stuttered. Arthur's spine arched, his chest pulling upward in a jagged, impossible curve that threatened to snap bone. Elara leaned in, pressing her face against the glass. A sound erupted from his throat. Not a gasp, but a wet, rhythmic clicking. It crawled through the speakers, sharp and persistent. It was a language of joints and friction. She watched as his jaw unhinged, the clicking accelerating until it mimicked the cadence of the melody she had discovered. As the realization of what she had unleashed turned the lab into a tomb. She saw Sarah standing in the doorway at the end of the hall. The girl's eyes were pitch black, matching the wet, rhythmic clicking Elara had heard on the tape. The girl opened her mouth,